Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. Today we are taking a look at a Marvel Legends 3-pack. So you know this has to be special because Mac here doesn't really get into Marvel Legends too much. What this is the, I believe it was an Amazon exclusive, Marvel Legends The Cabal 3-pack celebrating 85 years. And what we have in here is Taskmaster, Dr. Doom, and the one that I care least about, Iron Patriot. Seriously, I got this for the 2 on the end. I'm not real into Iron Patriot. As a matter of fact, I may end up selling that figure, depending on what he's like when we get him out of the box. But I really, really like Taskmaster. To be honest, he's probably the main reason I got this. Dr. Doom, like if it would have just been Taskmaster, I probably wouldn't have bought a 3-pack. But Dr. Doom over here being part of this as well, who is pretty much these are 2 of my favorite Marvel villains, and I'm not really a Marvel reader, so like to have these 2 in a set together, that's really special. That means something to me. Also, I've passed on all of the other Dr. Dooms that have come out over the past couple of years because they never really looked right to me. Like there was God Emperor Doom, which I didn't really care about. And then there was another Dr. Doom that I think pretty much used this design, but it was a little bit brighter. The green wasn't quite as dark. And when I saw this one packed in with this Taskmaster, I knew I had to get this set. So with this box set, what we have is just a big window box showing off all 3 of the figures, their accessories, such as they are in there. We have what I assume is like the standard new Marvel Legends design around the box, predominantly black with some, gold filigree down here. The Marvel logo, the Cabal, we have the 3 names of the figures. Up top, we just have Marvel celebrating 85 years. On the bottom, we have that. Over here, we just have a side window. Once again, Marvel Legends 85 years. Over here, we have some really nice artwork of Doom and Iron Patriot going head to head. And then on the back, we have some real nice artwork here as well, along with some profile pictures of Doom, Osborn, and Taskmaster. And then up here, we have the Cabal. Iron Patriot calls together some of the most dangerous beings in the world to form the Cabal, a volatile alliance that wreaks havoc on the world. I am not a huge Marvel reader anymore, so I am not familiar with the Cabal. I probably haven't really been heavy into Marvel comics since maybe the early aughts, the early 2000s. So the Cabal was kind of like after I stopped reading Marvel comics. I feel like, though, they are like the villain version of the Illuminati, maybe? I don't know. But whatever it is, apparently it has these 3 involved. And if it got these 3, or at least 2 of these 3, into a pack together and on my table right now, then I'm all the more happy for it. So, without further ado, let's get this open. We're probably going to start with Iron Patriot and then work our way to the best one. So, let's just get this open and let's take a look at the Marvel Legends series The Cabal celebrating 85 years, Taskmaster, Iron Patriot, and Dr. Doom. Okay, here we have him, Norman, out of the box, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 6.5 inches tall to the top of his very unique hairdo. So before we get started on this, I do feel it is important to mention, for anybody that's new to the channel, I do not collect Marvel Legends. The only reason I got this 3-pack, like I said at the beginning of the video, is because of Taskmaster and Doom. Other than that, I really don't have a large collection of Marvel Legends. So while I know this is more than likely a reuse from a previous Iron Man figure, I do not know what that figure is. So if you're sitting there watching this, screaming at me, "You idiot, it's Iron Man's suit, blah, 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 blah," I don't know that. So sorry about that. All I can do is just judge this based on the merits of the figure. And the first thing I'm going to say is that once I got all 3 of them out, and you'll see what I mean in the comparison to the other figures later, this is without a doubt 1, the most colorful, but 2, it's also the most plastic looking of the figures. And I know it's because they're using sort of like that, if you can see through the camera, there's especially in the red, this marbleized sort of like swirly twirly plastic that's used for the red, which has a very plastic look to it. And the metallic paints on it also give a very plastic look to it. I know they were probably trying to go for something metallic to look like a suit of armor, but to me, this just looks very plasticky. Now, having said that, if we bring him up closer and we take a look at the face sculpt, this is a fantastic face sculpt for Norman. Like, this is definitely like Norman at his lowest, with the dark rings around the eyes, that look of, I'm just going to kill you if you get in my way. Of course, he has this very unique, like, cornrowed hairdo where these just go around and across the top it goes over the top. So that's so Norman. But I also love the darkness of the lips, just like the cant to his mouth. Like, you look at this and you just know there's something not right with this dude. And it's like he's saying, man, where's my goblin costume? I'm so uncomfortable in this. But I do think the face sculpt is fantastic. I do appreciate the design of the armor for this one. I've heard some people mention that Iron Patriot should be used with a different suit of armor or a different Iron Man figure that they have out. Once again, I can't comment on that. As a matter of fact, I'm not even very familiar with Iron Patriot in the comic, so I don't know how comic accurate this is or isn't. So having said that, let's get down to the articulation. Well, wait, let's first look at the paint apps, because there are a lot of paint apps on here. That the only place that's really flawed on mine is these white bands around the arms, that you can sort of see that crack in the paint on each side. But other than that, I don't have any splash or like overspray, because I believe this and this is all basically molded in blue. The lower legs are molded in red. And I think the white, and in this case, the red in this area, is really the only thing that's painted. Everything else is just molded in solid colors. And of course, the star is painted as well. And that is very sharp, very pristine. No overspray right there either, which I really appreciate. Now, getting onto the articulation, his head will do a full 360 spin. He can look up so well, which is great for a flying figure. And that is because he does have the ball joint on a hinge, or the ball on a hinge joint right here, which is something I do wish, I've said this before, I wish Classified would go back to that. However, it does limit the side-to-side tilt, but he can also look down very well. And depending on how you have his head, you can get the neck into some funky positions that, like, if you bring it back too far, there's some overhang that you kind of gotta push it forward a little bit, so that it has like more of a natural resting position there. Now the arms do a full 360 spin. There is no butterfly joint in them. They can come up to the side, but the shoulder pauldron here really gets in the way. It does appear to be hinged, or at least attached here to the shoulder. I think it's actually glued to the outside of the shoulder piece right there, so that when you bring it up, that's as far as I can get mine without possibly damaging it. That it won't come all the way out to 90, but there is a bicep swivel. There is double jointed arms with some really good travel to them. Wrist swivel, wrists hinge in and out. All of his hands will hinge in and out. We'll see that with his accessory hands in a moment. He has nothing going on in the waist right here. All of his movement on the torso is going to be in this ab cut. You can see he can do a full 360 spin. There's some decent amount of side to side. He can go back fairly well. He can go forward fairly well. Something else that I appreciate, that like, if you notice when you arch him back, there's still some like metallic, some like armor sculpting right in there, which I think is very cool. He does not have drop down hips. The hips will come out, or the legs will come out to there, just under 90. Now coming out to the side, these discs would originally get in the way, but they can swivel up out of the way so that you can get his legs out to basically 90 right there. And then you just swivel this back into place. He has a thigh cut. He has double jointed knees with some decent travel to them. No boot cut, no swivel at the wrist or at the ankle. But the ankles rock back very well. The ankles rock forward okay, and there is forward-facing pin for some rocker. Now, as I showed you, Harry's head does pop off very easily, and that is because, of course, we have an alternative head that we can give him, and that is his helmeted head. And once again, for being basically like a repaint of Iron Man, I think this looks really cool. And this Iron Man, or the helmeted head, can look up very well, can look down very well, and has that slight side to side. I do really appreciate that, like, he can get those pretty much dead on looking poses for flight, especially if you incorporate the ab cut right in there. But I love the up and down on the head. Also, taking a look at the masked head, once again, there are some flawless paint apps on here. It looks like the head was pretty much molded in red, and then this was painted in white, or maybe it's two pieces, I'm not entirely sure. But the paint apps are very sharp, very precise, especially with like this black piping in here. And the plastic, I believe, is a translucent orange for the eye slots, which give it a bit of a glowing look, an energized look, and I appreciate that. Honestly, if I do keep this figure, I'll probably always pose it like this, because while I appreciate having Norman Osborn's head, this just looks so cool. This just looks like a much more complete figure, a much more complete look. And if I keep him, this is how I'm going to pose him. So out of the box, Iron Patriot comes with a pair of clenched fists, but just like with the head, there are additional hands that you can have for this. So you can pop these clenched fists off, and you can put on these open hands, which of course, Iron Man's suit, he has his repulsor hands right there. We just pop those off. You can see there are very long pegs for them, and they sit in there very well. And the wrist articulation lets you get them up into the open blast, position. And then he has these sockets right here for these blast effects that he comes with. And you can just plug those in right there. And there you go. Norman is laying down some hate, laying down some hurt on his enemies. I always did like the blast effects for the Iron Man figures from the Marvel Legends line. I like that. I like it better, though, whenever they're blue instead of these red right here. But these are pulling sort of triple duty, because not only are they used for the blast effects for Iron Patriot right here, but they can also be used in his feet for his thrusters. And once we get to Doom, I believe Doom can use these as well for his flight poses. And speaking of Doom, here he is, Victor Von Doom, the one, the only, the original, out of his box, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he would be approximately 6.5 inches tall to the top of his head, but he's roughly just under 6 3/4 to the top of his hood right here. I did Dr. Doom second because I honestly thought that he was going to be, the second favorite out of the box. I thought Taskmaster was going to be my favorite, but getting him out, looking at him, playing around with him a little bit, I'm not entirely sure that's true anymore. This is a fantastic, in my opinion, version of Dr. Doom. Now, keep in mind, I don't have any of the other ones to compare it to, but I just feel like the sculpt, the design of his armor, the look of his armor, the detail work they did on his belt and all of his accessory, or all of his clothing accessories right here, I think is just top notch. The cloth goods cape that is not nearly as see-through as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a very light material that was see-through, sort of like the Mattel Masterverse figures are. But this is actually a fairly heavy cloth goods cape, and I really like that. I appreciate that. And just take a minute and look. This, to me, looks like something that just walked right off the comic page and onto my table here. I think this looks great. I also think they did a really good job of transitioning from the cloth goods cape to the plastic hood, that the coloration is, there is a slight difference in coloration, but truthfully, you don't notice it, especially when you're looking at it from the front and you have the cape coming out over the shoulder or something. I think they did a fantastic job with that. Also, when you get him out of the package, you can see that the cape is kind of folded underneath itself to keep itself back and neat. It does extend out, so you can bring it forward over his shoulders. I just kept it tucked back for now because it's going to be easier to look at the design of the figure and the articulation of the figure. Well, also, if we lift up the cape, we can see that he has a set of rocket packs of jets on his back that once again, if we take these blast effects, they will plug right in. I probably could have saved that for the accessories section, but let's just do that now. That you can plug the jet effects right into the rocket packs on his back. I think this whole thing looks fantastic. Like bringing him up, first of all, let's get the light on so that we can try and see underneath the hood right there. That this is something else that I always liked about Dr. Doom. Just the design of his mask. Like, this is a high-tech suit of armor, but it has such a medieval look to it, right down to the tunic that he's wearing over top, that it looks like a jousting knight. But then the mask, when you get into there, the mask is like something like right out of the Man in the Iron Mask, which is appropriate because it's kind of covering like his really, or not so really, scarred and jacked up face. And even looking at the face sculpt underneath it, you can see the flesh tones coming through. You can see the eyes peering out. Something else that I really like, if you pop this off, you can see there is a fully fleshed head sculpt underneath there, and then they put the mask on over top of it, which I think is a really, really great detail that they did. Turning off the light, you can see that like you can sort of lose him in the shadows of his hood. And that's really cool too. I really appreciate that. That like the hood, whether that was by mistake or design, the fact that the hood can like sort of like shadow part of Doom's face, I really, really like that. Now, let's take it the art. Well, also, wait, look how the tunic is pulled over and you can see like the chest, the metallic chest of his armor right here. You can see the where is it at? You can see like the detail of the chainmail. Here it is, like right here on the back of his knee. You can see the detail of the chainmail between the armor pieces right here. The rivets in the armor. The only thing they didn't do, which I'm a little disappointed in, is that they didn't apply like some brown paint to the buckling on the inside of his legs right here for his armor, nor on the inside of his arms. That's my only nitpick right there. And I think I wouldn't have even noticed it so much if they hadn't done such a superb job on his belt right here. With the texturing for the leather, you can see the gold rivets right here on this part of the belt. You can see the gold of the buckle. And you have the design. I'm surprised they didn't do anything for like the design of the D on his holster right here as well. I think that looks really cool. And I also, let's get the light back on, really like the detail they did that you can see like the brown ties of his tunic right there. Now, the armor on this, just like with Iron Patriot, is a little bit of that marbleized swirly twirly plastic, but because I feel like it's not all encompassing and it's muted by his tunic, the cloth goods cape, the leather belt, that for him on this, it just looks more like armor. It looks more metallic than plasticky like Iron Patriot did. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the articulation of Doom. That the head will do a full 360 spin despite having this big hood on there. But as you saw, you have to watch these ends whenever you're bringing him over the shoulder that they don't get caught. He doesn't have much in the way of side-to-side head tilt. He doesn't really look up very well because the hood does get in the way. He can look down very well though. The arms will do a full 360 spin. There is no butterfly joint. The shoulder pauldrons do not get in the way because they are part of the sculpt, so his arms can come up way past 90. He has a bicep swivel. He has double jointed elbows with some really good travel. Wrists twist, wrists hinge in and out. The majority of his hands will hinge in and out except this hand, which is his trigger hand, his weapon holding hand, and that does hinge up and down. Now, I didn't think to look at the waist before I started this, but yeah, there is a ball joint at the waist. You can see it spinning right above the belt. There's not a whole lot of back. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's any rock back to it. There is a little bit of forward, but not much, and not much going on side to side. So it doesn't look like there's really any movement in the waist except a turn from side to side. And truthfully, it's Doom. I don't have a problem with that. I know some people will want like full articulation, but truthfully, with this being Doom, I don't really have a problem with him not being the most flexible in the torso. Now, underneath his tunic here, he does have the standard hips. Oh, and you can even see more of like, let's get the light back on again. You can even see more of like the chainmail right there at the top of his armored boots. So the legs will come forward, which is pretty impressive considering this is trying to push down on it. The legs will go back a bit. You can see there is a slit in the tunic so that the legs can come up to the side. They don't come up quite to 90. As a matter of fact, they're going down, down, down. That is as far as they're going to go. Let's get that folded back in. There is a thigh cut right there. Double jointed knees with some decent travel to them. No boot cut, but there is a pivot at the ankle, but it's a little hindered by the armor pieces that are coming down on the side right there. The ankles rock way back. The ankles rock forward fairly well, and there is a forward-facing pin for some rocker. And once again, I just want to draw attention to detail on the arm. Let's get our light off right here. I want to draw attention to detail on the armor right here, that you can even see the rivets in his armor. Like I said, the buckles, you can see the rivets around his gauntlets, his armored gauntlets right here. I think this just looks fantastic. And like I said, the cape can come out. It does fold out from underneath itself. And you can bring the cape out. Let's get it positioned so that it's more of like an over-the-shoulder cape, just like how Doom has. So Doom does have a few accessories, a little bit more than Iron Patriot does. And the first thing that he has is this, a Luger. And I have to admit, I am impressed that they were able to give Doom a gun in this, with the way that comic books companies like DC and Marvel have been about letting their heroes and villains pack heat in action figure form. And I don't think he even uses this in the comics anymore. This was definitely a product of classic Doom, but I think modern Doom, he basically just has like hand blasters like Iron Man does. But I am so appreciative that they included this, because like I said, this Luger, this is classic Doom right here. This, and it fits him. Like this armor, Ruler of Latveria, Victor Von Doom, toting around a Luger right here. This is just so, it fits him so well. And well, hold on, let's get this, take a look at this. There's not the greatest amount of detail to it. As a matter of fact, I feel like the waffling for the handle goes up a little high. There's really not a definitive trigger in there. You can see a little bit of like that unique hammer that the Luger has right there. I mean, it's identifiable as what it is, but there's not a whole lot of detail to it. However, for as small as it is, when I first saw it, I was worried that it may be a little too small for Doom's hand, but you can see it fits perfectly. I was really impressed with how well this fit into his hand. I thought it was going to be too small for him. And then on his hip right here, we do have a holster that you can just pop this up. There is a peg and a slot right there, kind of like how the NECA Flash Gordons were, that we can pull the pistol out of his hand. It fits in there, sinks deep. You can see that the barrel comes out just a little bit, but then we can pop that back on and it is holstered and it is staying there. And like, that's just classic Doom. Like, everything about this is classic Marvel Comics Doom. At least to me it is. So out of the packaging, Doom comes with these two hands, which is, you know, his trigger hand and his very evil, mwahaha, I have the world hand right here. Now, he does come with additional hands, but only two, and they are a pair of clenched fists because, of course, Dr. Doom needs his fists for when he's, you know, throwing fists. And I dig these. Once again, they have that great metallic look to them. I like, there's like the ridges on the knuckles, just like it goes so well with the rest of it. And these do hinge in and out instead of up and down. Now, the fists are not the only thing that you can swap out, that he does have another head sculpt. And where did I put it? Give me a moment to find it. I never pulled it out of the box. Here is the other head sculpt, and this is 100% a Doombot. And this is a fantastic look for a Doombot as well. And you can take this Dr. Doom and turn him into a Doombot. You can pop his head off. You saw before we could take it off. And he does have the ball with the hinge right here, but the neck is also on a ball joint as well, which is even more frustrating that you really can't get much play out of it because of the hood. That seems like there was a lot of possibilities for movement right there, but the hood does hinder it. But honestly, the hood is awesome, so I'm not going to be upset about that. You can take this piece out, and that takes the cape off, and then you can put this back on like so, and then you pop this head on, and there you have a Doombot. And I think that's really cool. I think that is a fantastic addition. It's a shame that an army builder comes with a 3-pack right here, but I was also curious, since I don't have the other Dr. Dooms, how this head sculpt would match up with the armor from like one of the previous Dooms. So that if you had the Doom that came out before this one that was in the brighter green tunic, if the armor matches up with that head sculpt, so that the idea being that you could turn that Dr. Doom into a Doombot. And then, like I said, he has his jetpacks back here, that the plug-in accessories that come with it. Remember I said Iron Patriot's accessories are going to be pulling double duty. This is it right here, that like you put them on the Doombot for flight. They do also fit on the bottom of his feet if you would want him blasting off that way. Now, unfortunately, if you are a classified collector like I am, this is the blast effect from the Steel Brigade. It's basically the rocket blast effect that they have for the G.I. Joe like jetpacks and things. The pegs are much smaller that they don't fit in. You wouldn't be able to like double up and use these at all. It's this. It's the Marvel ones, which if you're a Marvel collector, I'm sure you have a bunch of these that you could use for additional like blast effects on your Doombot. But I do think that is really cool that they gave you that option. And I do love like this Terminator skull looking head right here that almost makes me want to buy the single Dr. Doom and turn him into a Doombot if the armors match up. And that leads us to the last one. My man, my hero, my champion, Taskmaster, out of the box. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is approximately just under 6.5 inches tall to the top of his hood. Have I mentioned that I love Taskmaster? Like, I love Taskmaster in all his goofiness, in all his awesomeness. This Skeletor mercenary pirate gunsmith. I love everything about this guy, from the skull mask that he wears to the bright white of the hood and the cloak, no stealth involved whatsoever, to the garish colors of the rest of his costume with the blues and the oranges, the white gauntlets, the white pirate boots, the old style holster that he has on his hip, this band for no reason at all, his love of 90s accessories pouches, everything about him I have loved ever since I found out this guy existed in the Marvel Universe. I loved him back in the day in the late 90s, early 2000s when he was a Moon Knight villain and he was kind of like a killer, a bloodthirsty, like sort of like Deathstroke to the nth power. I love him now where he's kind of like this goofy, yeah, I have a skull face, so what, type of guy. I've loved every incarnation of Taskmaster. I love his look. I love his attitude. I love his skill set. Everything about this guy has like always been my favorite. The previous outings for the Marvel figures, while they weren't bad, I felt never got the skull mask right. This one has it right. Look at those deep eye sockets with those little beady points of like metallic white just peering out like it's almost something supernatural, but we know it's just a dude in a mask. I love that you can't take the mask off and there's like no unmasked head for Taskmaster. Like, this is your guy. Love it or leave it. I also like, and I forgot to mention this with Doom, that I like that they gave the hoods plastic hoods instead of cloth goods hoods, especially with Doom because he had the cloth cape. Because the cloth hoods never lay right. They always kind of like poof up. Whereas with the plastic hoods, you can mold them to how they should lay, giving them that comic look. And his even has the peak right here that I love. Now his cape is a plastic cape, a plastic shell of a cape. It's not a cloth goods cape, but I get why they did it for Taskmaster because he has the quiver on the outside. The cape is doing more than just looking good. Like, it's earning its keep right here. So you really need that. Now the way that it attaches is, let me pop the head off for a minute, that it sits very loose around the shoulders, that it only really has this peg right here that pegs into the back of the figure. The problem is, at least on mine, is mine is a little bent and it's very soft, that it doesn't always sit in there right. Let me see if I can even get it in right now. It doesn't always peg in the tightest and it's very loose. So you can get it in there and then you can pop his head on, but eventually it's going to come loose. But I don't really have a problem with that because the head sculpt does help hold it into place as well. The quiver is attached to the cape, even though he has this belt going around right here, that honestly, if we take this off, we take this off again, and we lift this arm up, this belt is a completely separate piece. But like with Doom, I really like how they gave attention to detail, like especially right there at the buckle. I always love when they give attention to detail to things like the buckles. So that just sits across him like a bandolier, that I believe the idea is that it's supposed to be the thing holding his quiver on. And you see, sometimes I have to bend that peg back into position before I can get it to peg into his back. And like I said before, it will stay there long enough to get the head sculpt on, but then eventually it's going to pop out, but the head sculpt helps keep it on. And like I said, we have the quiver here, we have his gloves, we have his belt that is another loose piece that has all of his pouches for his accessories, like, you know, his Taskmaster harangues, his gas pellets, everything. Branding is very important to the Taskmaster. We have his T right here on his belt buckle. So cool, so cool, so excited I got this. Let's take a look at his articulation. That his head will do a full 360 spin, but it pops off because the hood, if you hold the hood down, he'll be able to do it, but like, because of the sculpt of the hood, it tends to pop things off. No side to side at all. Whoop. Even though it's a ball on a hinge, he doesn't really look up very well. He can look down fairly well, but he's not a flying character, so the looking up, I really don't have too much of an issue with. His arms will do a full 360. He has a butterfly joint. Now, I believe, please, Marvel Legends collectors, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the Vulcan body that I think has sort of become like their standard buck now. And he has, like I said, he has the butterfly joints right in there. He can get his arms up to 90. He has a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows with some decent travel to them, especially with these big gauntlets on. Wrists swivel, wrists hinge up and down. These ones hinge up and down. I haven't looked at his other ones yet, to be completely honest, his other hand accessories, but both of these are weapon-wielding hands, so they hinge up and down. I really appreciate that. There is a swivel here at the waist that he can do a full 360. You can see he has this open ab cut right in there, so he can crank back very far. He can crank forward very far. Not having a cloth goods cape, though, it kind of looks a little ridiculous. There's no side to side right there. Legs will come up. Whoopah. Legs will come up almost to 90. Legs will come out to the side to there. Whoop, to there. There is a thigh cut. There are double jointed knees with some really good travel despite this big cuff on the boot. Amazingly enough, with these big boots, there's no boot twist. There's no boot cut right there, which I was very surprised. I thought if any of them would have a boot cut, especially since he has the butterfly joints, it would be Taskmaster here. But the ankles will rock back, the ankles will rock forward, and we have a forward-facing pin for some rocker. Also, we paid all this attention to the cape, but I forgot to mention that you can see, let me get it in properly, that there is some dynamics to the cape, that it kind of swoops out to the side. So when it's a plastic cape, I don't mind that it's plastic as long as they give it some some dynamics to it, like this, some flow, which I appreciate that. Would I have preferred this to be a cloth goods cape? Yes, but two things about that. One, there would have been a real problem with the quiver, and two, with the cloth goods cape, especially with the kind that we have with Doom right here, I'm not sure they would have gotten the two-tone color of Taskmaster's cape. I don't know if they would have been able to do orange on the inside and then the bright white on the outside. But man, I really love this. And like bringing it forward once again, there doesn't seem to be any issues with the paint apps on mine. The only one that I think had paint app issues was Iron Patriot, but everything on my Taskmaster seems to be sharp and spot on. Oh, there's a little bit of thinness right here you can see, but I think that is about it. And the paint apps on the skull head, once again with the black wash on there, looks fantastic. Really has the teeth popping. Oh, I love this guy. So as you saw out of the box, Taskmaster has these two hands, that this is just a trigger hand and this is an open gripping hand. This will be for his pistol, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And this will be for holding things like his sword, his bow and arrow, or his bow, things like that. In addition to that, Taskmaster does have a pair of clenched fists because, let's be honest, Taskmaster can throw fists. And then his final hand is kind of like this open, just splayed out hand that originally I thought this was for drawing an arrow or something, but I don't think that's what it's for. This, like the fists, hinge in and out. So it's a cool hand. I just don't know what it is supposed to do. Maybe it is for drawing an arrow. I'm not entirely sure. So Taskmaster has more accessories than either of the other two figures. He does only have the one head sculpt, like I said, no unmasked version, but he does have additional accessories. Once again, he has a pistol, and this is pretty much the pistol that he is always shown with. I don't know if this is a real world pistol or not. I feel like it is, but I don't know for certain 100%. Anybody that knows, please let me know. I always thought this was something that was made up. The other issue that I have with it is very soft, very gummy. And when you have him and you put it in his pistol holding hand, you kind of have to cheat to get his finger in the trigger guard because his finger sticks out a little too far to get it really seated into his hand. And it's very small, like very small. I feel like Taskmaster would have something a little bit of a higher caliber, not necessarily like a Desert Eagle or something, but I mean, even Doom came with a Luger. He does have a holster though, which I like. You saw it right here on his hip, that you can just holster it right in there. Now it does have the beginnings of like a strap, but that is just there for show. There's no strap. The pistol sits low enough in the holster that it doesn't need one. You can see the barrel protruding from the bottom. And in case I didn't mention it before when we were looking at the sculpt and the paint apps, love the paint on the buckles. Now something else that he comes with is his bow right here. And while I don't collect Marvel Legends, I would not doubt if we haven't seen this bow before, especially with Hawkeye. I think it's a decent mold to it. Whoops, I think it's a decent mold to it. I like the brown paint job on it. It looks like the paint may be a little thin around the handle right there, but I'm not very concerned about that. That'll be in his grip 9 times out of 10. This translucent plastic for the string is okay. I think, honestly, it probably would have been better if they would have just had no string there at all and just had the mold of the bow. I forget what figure I have that did that they didn't even bother putting a string on there. It was just like the risers. And I feel like that was the best way to go. Now, he doesn't necessarily have some place to hold this when he's not using it. Unlike my beloved Classified, Marvel Legends isn't designed to be able to kit out everything if they're not holding it. But you can sling it over his quiver. You can sling it over his quiver like so, and sort of push it in so it stays tight, and then he can at least wear the bow on the back along with the quiver right there. Now, let's take this back off. He does get a good grip on it with his gripping hand right here. The fingers are gummy enough, loose enough, that he can hold it very well right there. Maybe it's a little too loose, but he can hold it well right there. We also have this large arrow that he can use to draw. I love that there's multiple paint apps on this. I love that the shaft of the arrow and the nock right here is painted brown, the fletching is red, and the tip is gold. I really dig that. And he can hold this in his trigger hand. Whoop. Come on, come on. Holding the arrows is not always the easiest, and so he can knock an arrow to make it look like he's getting ready to draw. Now that other hand that I looked at, maybe this is for this. Maybe not. But there is a place to store this as well, that there is a space here in the quiver that you can just push the loose arrow down in there. And then, like I said, if you want, you can put the bow and sort of just nestle it against the quiver like that. So then he can at least have his pistol in the holster and then the quiver and the bow on his back. The other piece that we're going to take a look at is this sword, and even I know we have seen this sword before. As a matter of fact, I already have this sword. This sword came with, the first time I got it, it was the Walgreens exclusive Baron Zemo. And did this come with somebody from Excalibur or the Black Knight? I can't remember, but I know we've had this sword in Marvel Legends before. There is no sheath for this sword, so he can't wear it on his back. He can't wear it on his hip, unfortunately, but he can have it in either hand. Even his trigger hand right here gets a decent grip on it so that he can carry it there and leave this wrist open for... What would Taskmaster be without his signature shield? And I don't doubt that this is a shield from a Captain America figure, just with a new paint job on it. But look at it. The big stylized T for Taskmaster right there. It does fit on the figure very much the same way that the Captain America shields do, that you can flip this out and you just peg it onto his wrist. You flip that in, and this would normally peg into his back, but because of the cape and the quiver, he already has something in his back. But honestly, with the few Marvel Legends figures that I have, especially like that World War II cap, I was always worried that this was going to crack under pressure when you clip it on the wrist. So what I actually do is I just put the shield like this, and then I turn the character's hand, and then I just have him hold the shield. Because quite frankly, who's going to know whenever the shield is posed and in place? Now, I do have to admit that with this one, let's pop this out, that the clip is not nearly as tight on Taskmaster as it is on some of the Captain Americas. That it is a nice fit. I don't feel like it's going to break. But the other issue with this is that with the way that it clips on, the T won't ever come out straight unless you just hold the shield down like this. So if he has it up in a battle pose, the T doesn't look right. And Taskmaster's all about branding. So I still do this so that he can have his brand on point. And there we go. There's Taskmaster, fully loaded out. Pistol, sword, shield, bow, arrows, skull. I love this figure. And now for size comparison, here they are beside Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Cobra Commander and Tiger Force Duke. I don't know if Marvel Legends scale larger than classified figures, but it looks like Doom and Iron Patriot, Norman Osborn, are going to be a little bit taller than your average 6-inch scale Hasbro figure. Taskmaster seems to fit in there fairly well. And honestly, I don't have a problem with that because Doom and Norman are both in armor. It stands to reason they would be a little bit taller. Here they are beside some other Marvel Legends figures, World War II Cap from the Riders series and Daredevil Elektra. Here they are beside Valaverse Action Force Bone Collector version 2 and Pandora. Here they are beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone. Here they are beside NECA Toys Dungeons & Dragons Warduke and Grimsword, and honestly, if it wasn't for the size difference, doesn't it look like Warduke and Taskmaster would just so get along? And finally, here they are with Airborne and Me from the G.I. Joe Steel Corps. So for not being a Marvel Legends collector, I think this is a fantastic 3-pack. I really do. Of course, I'm biased because 2 of my favorite villains are in this pack, Taskmaster and Doom. I'm very curious to know what Marvel Legends collectors feel about Iron Patriot being part of this 3-pack. There's at least like 2 or 3 other A-tier villains that I could think of that I would have rather have seen in this pack, but not knowing who the Cabal is, I don't really know who you would have to pick from. Like, honestly, I would have liked to have seen like a classic Baron Zemo with this. I think that could have been really cool. But like I said, I don't know who all was in the Cabal that could have taken Norman's place. And I do understand the importance of Norman. I think he was the leader of the Cabal, although how he outranked Doom, I'm not really sure. This is the version of Doom I've been waiting for. This is the version of Taskmaster I've been waiting for. Even when inevitably newer versions come out, I don't see them being anything more than what these 2 are. Not that they won't be better, but these are just the versions of Doom and Taskmaster that I want, that I've been waiting for. They're very classic look. The look that they had basically when I was reading Marvel Comics. So like there is that touchstone to like, this is how I remember them when I was reading. It's not necessarily that the newer versions are worse. I just don't have any connection to them. I do really dig the Doombot head for Dr. Doom. I think that's really cool. And I hope it does match up with the armor to the previous version of Doom so that like you could have this version of Dr. Doom be like your shelf Doom and then recycle the older Doom if you have him for a Doombot. Like I said, I'm even kicking around the idea of trying to find that older version of Doom if the armor colors match up. Taskmaster is excellent. There's nothing else I can say about that. He may not be the best version of Taskmaster, but he is the best version of Taskmaster for me. He's the version I've been waiting for. I even have the Marvel Select version of Taskmaster, the 7-inch scale one, and I really like that one too. But this will fit with, you know, my beloved 1/12 scale, so I'm very happy about having that. As a matter of fact, Doom and Taskmaster aren't even going to be blended into like my DC line. I think I know what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. I think they're basically just going to start to form like this third faction for my classified series. And I already know, like, have plans of like what's going to be their army builders and everything. And it's just going to be real cool for me. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. These figures are light on the accessories, except for Taskmaster, but I think that's par for the course for Marvel Legends. I don't think the Marvel Legends figures, much like the Star Wars figures, come with a lot of accessories. Keeping in mind that when you have Marvel Legends, you do have that Disney tax, that they kind of, one, have to cut corners because they're not making as much money off of a Marvel Legends figure as they are as something like a classified figure, or even a Power Ranger. I still can't believe that they quit on the Power Rangers. Also, everything that comes with these figures, I'm pretty sure, has to get approval before it can be packaged, so I can see that kind of being a big pain in the tuchus as well. As I've said multiple times, not being a Marvel Legends collector, I don't know how this matches up to other Marvel Legends. I would be very interested to hear from collectors of the line what they think of it. I can only talk about these figures as is standing alone. I have nothing to compare them to. I just wanted the 3-pack because I really like Taskmaster and Doom, as I've been saying. So if you are a Marvel Legends collector and you're looking at this and there's something that I missed, or there's something that you don't agree with, or it's not the Vulcan body, please let me know. I'd be very interested to hear what you think of them. But as a non-collector, I think these are some pretty good ones. My biggest issue with Iron Patriot is just that He just looks plastic. I know they were trying to make him look metallic, but he just looks plastic to me. Hello, before you click away, please remember to do all the YouTube things, like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you already did subscribe, big thanks to you. If you like the show and you want to help the channel grow, please consider becoming a YouTube member or a monthly coffee subscriber, where for $1 a month, you can get access to member benefits, such as the monthly members exclusive video. This month, it is the Fig 016 scale Cobra Commander. So until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.